Hi, I'm Stan Cho, MPP for Willowdale. When my parents first immigrated to Canada from South Korea in the 1970s, like many new Canadians, they found work at their local convenience store. They worked long hours, 7 days a week, and eventually they saved up enough money to buy their own Becker's franchise in Rexdale. Growing up in that convenience store played a huge role in my life. It taught me the value of hard work and the importance of serving your community. This week is National Convenience Store Week, and more than 25,000 convenience stores across Canada will be giving back by raising money for Make-A-Wish Foundation. Convenience store operators like my parents and Naveed here at Circle K in Toronto are some of the hardest working small business owners I know, but they're also dedicated members of our communities. They're our neighborhood watch, philanthropists, good neighbors, and reliable friends in good times and in bad. Throughout this pandemic, they've continued to serve more than 10 million customers every day and support 234,000 jobs across our country. So this week, walk down to the corner, say thank you, and support convenience stores.
So we've got joining us for our next episode of Corner Stories, we have Stan Cho, and we are delighted to have Stan with us. Stan, thank you so very much for your participation in National Convenience Week. We were so thrilled to see you share your family's story. And I was really hoping that you could elaborate a little bit further with us the role that convenience stores have played in your life.
Thank you, Anne. Thanks for having me. And hello, everybody. Yes, and you're right. I mean, convenience stores have played a huge role in my life and in my path to public service. And you know, sometimes it's still surreal for me as I sit at the Ministry of Finance and during these extraordinary times and have the direct say and the direction our province heads to think back to my beginnings, because my first memories of life are actually literally in a convenience store. And you know, my mom and my dad, they immigrated to this country from South Korea nearly 50 years ago, and they had little more than the clothes on their backs. And you know, my dad's actual first job outside of a farm in Guelph, Ontario, was selling earthworms as fishing bait. And from there, he learned enough English to eventually work minimum wage in a convenience store in Guelph, a store I actually got to visit earlier this year, which was a special moment for me. And then he worked hard enough to eventually save up enough money to buy his own Becker's franchise, and that was in Rexdale, Ontario. And that's the convenience store I'm talking about, where my first memories were playing in that store, eventually doing homework in the corner of that store. And as my dad studied for his real estate license, and you know, he went on to great success in business, and it went on to start a company that employs 200 people throughout the greater Toronto area. And that's what I love about the convenience store world, is it gave my dad, my family, that opportunity to go from selling earthworms as fishing bait to owning a very successful company. And that's the story of so many new Canadians you know, who come to our country, finding that first start in the convenience store world and great success. And you know, it's funny actually, that convenience store in Guelph, when I did go to visit, it was very emotional for me, because the Afghani gentleman who was in there, the same story. You know, 3 kids, working long hours to make ends meet, and that's what the convenience store world is. Forget Kim's Convenience, and it was Cho's Convenience first. So very special to me.
There you go. No, and it really is. It's such a quintessential Canadian story, right? And it's one of the great things that makes me so proud to represent this industry. Now, in your role as parliamentary assistant, what have you observed about how small businesses, I mean, not just convenience stores, but how small businesses writ large have reacted to the COVID-19 crisis? And then following up on that, do you think some of the changes have sort of changed forever?
It's a great question, Anne. And you know, coming from the small business world and watching my family work so incredibly hard, I know that running a small business is hard at the best of times. Let alone during a global pandemic with this much uncertainty. And I've seen small businesses be exactly what I thought they were, that resilient, adaptable family. I mean, that's what we have to remember. Behind the door of every small business is a family just trying to make a living, to put food on the table for their loved ones. And so that resiliency has really shown itself during this pandemic. We've seen small businesses adapt, not just to the new normal, but to new business normals. I think of a dry cleaner just not far down the road I visited last week here from Queen's Park, who had no business, whose business dropped off by 90%. And that lady was able to turn her business into a mask manufacturing business and has sold tens of thousands of masks and has been able to keep her family afloat that way. And that's the story of the small business world out there. But to your question about has the climate changed for small business, I believe it has, and I think it would be naive to say otherwise, because this is a global pandemic that, and as we see the increase in case numbers today and of late, this is something that is going to change the business climate, possibly forever. And of course, unfortunately, there will be casualties along the way. But I do believe overall that the resiliency of small businesses and strength and of character will be shown, that it will be emerge victorious, and that we will come to a sunnier days, which are on the horizon and coming soon. But yeah, that adaptability, I'm sure we've seen the best in our small business community.
Absolutely. You're 100% correct. And I mean, as you know, from the outset, convenience stores were deemed essential services. And we were there, and we had to obviously pivot quickly, and, all with a view to keeping both our customers and our employees safe, right? That was paramount to us. That was absolutely essential. But of course, one of the big challenges that came with that was having the reliable access to PPE, and outfitting their stores so that they were COVID-19 compliant. So can you talk about some of the policies your government is considering to support these same small businesses who have seen, huge increases in expenses in order to make these changes?
Yes, thanks, Anne. It's something, a challenge that small businesses face that the government is very well aware of. It's from plexiglass to retraining your staff, to cleaning, to masks, to gloves. These are all, additional expenses that businesses didn't foresee. And to combine on top of that, the potential revenue hits that these businesses are taking, this is a big storm. And so government needs to do our part. And we have a budget coming up on November 15th or before, where we recognize some of the challenges that businesses are facing. And our government needs to step up and take some measures and be able to help businesses where we can. We're also need to make sure that our government doesn't have to rely, that our supply chain doesn't have to rely on jurisdictions outside of Ontario. And that's why our government's been so focused on making sure that we have Ontario-made personal protective equipment. Our premier recently had a big announcement with 3M talking about that very fact, and more has to be done. And so you can go to ontario.ca/COVID-19 to see what has been done so far. We've done our best to provide vendors of record that are able to provide reliable, good quality personal protective equipment to the small businesses out there. But the biggest thing we can do is have the small businesses that are watching today to be able to have that direct line of communication to government during these unprecedented and uncertain times, to be able to adapt quickly and to make sure that Ontario can rely on Ontario for the small business needs when it comes to PPE out there.
That's great, and thank you for that. And we really do, salute the Ontario government for everything that they have done to also respond quickly and, work with small businesses. And, one of the issues that has really come to the fore for us as an industry is, we know your government has been an advocate for the removal of outdated restrictions on the sale of alcohol. And, you made that commitment in your 2018 platform. And we saw additional reforms this spring when the government removed regulations and red tape that prevented the sale and distribution of alcohol through takeout and delivery. So allowing those to help those restaurants during the pandemic, which I think was also a great policy to help those small businesses out as well. So in light of that, are you able to give us a bit of an update on where things stand when it comes to expanding alcohol sales in corner stores? And if you think there will be changes before the next election?
Sure. I mean, it didn't take me becoming a politician and to first hear about beer and wine in convenience stores. It was my dad who first said it back when I was a kid in the 80s, and he said, right, we should be able to sell this here. And I agree. And on a personal note, this is something I want to see. I want to see beer and wine in convenience stores. I think it's fair. I think it's about choice and fairness for the consumer. And it's something the Premier has also communicated very clearly to the sector, saying that this is something that we want to see. Now, of course, there are ongoing MFA negotiations, which may have seemed to have stopped during the pandemic, but that is not true. There's certainly things have slowed, but we are working on the regulatory framework. And there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes that is laying the groundwork so that we no longer are a jurisdiction that has antiquated laws when it comes to alcohol or regulations. I mean, we literally have laws and regulations in existence since the Prohibition era. And that's not providing the choice and fairness for the consumers out there. And this isn't just about booze. Let's remember that Ontario has some of the greatest farms and agricultural land in the world. We should be showcasing our local product. We should be creating those local jobs in our communities. And the consumer should have the right to be able to walk down to their local store on the corner and be able to purchase those local products. So we are absolutely committed to that. You saw, I think our government has signaled very clearly that we're serious about making those changes. You mentioned the takeout of alcohol from restaurants being one of the examples. That's something personally that I will fight to make sure remains permanent, by the way. But we've done other things. We've allowed the LCBO to increase their shelf space to showcase more local product, to be able to provide more advertising space on their social media and in their printed publications. And these are just examples of where we are signaling our seriousness to help the sector until those MFA negotiations are completed. And I will speak for the Premier, who has said it very publicly. We are absolutely committed to making sure that beer and wine end up in our convenience stores.
Well, that's absolutely great to hear because, you know, as you, I'm sure, can well appreciate, and again, with your background and understanding that, you know, when you are facing declines in revenues and increases in expenses, there's only certain things that you can do. And increasing the product mix, and particularly in light of COVID, where we've seen that consumers are being encouraged to take less trips and to, you know, go and get what they need at one time and not be sort of frequently going out. And certainly at the beginning, that was the case. And so wouldn't it have been great at the beginning if when they went to get their milk and bread and eggs, that they might have also been able to get a bottle of wine or a few craft beers, et cetera, right? So it really is, you know, now more than ever, this is an issue that is just so, when we talk to convenience store owners, they say, like, how about us? Is it our time now to be able to do this? And we know that we have an advocate in you and you understand it, and we really appreciate that. I think the other big issue that we've seen, and something that really the pandemic really kind of shone a light on it, is the level of contraband use in Ontario. Our members have reported significant increases in legal tobacco sales, which, you know, frankly is good news for the government, because the government actually, Ministry of Finance officials contacted us to say, hey, we're noticing a real uptick in tobacco taxes that we're collecting. And we said, well, absolutely. And this was largely due to the fact that a number of First Nation reserves were closed during the height of the pandemic. So we're actually working with Ernst & Young because we feel that this is such an important study. We've known about these numbers for a while, but again, the pandemic's really offered us the opportunity to really shine a light on it. And we're going to be gathering that data so that we can help inform government decision-making. So I was wondering if you could give a bit of an update on your government's work to address this ongoing contraband tobacco issue.
I appreciate that, Anne, and I'm looking forward to seeing that study when it's available for us. You know, we know the pandemic has had delayed sort of the discussions a little bit around contraband tobacco, but we also know that this isn't just about, you know, revenue and its fiscal impact on a province. This is about the social impact as well. We know that the contraband sales, the money goes to fund organized crime, you know, and maybe the age restrictions or the age verification aren't as strict when it comes to contraband tobacco. There's a multitude of social issues that come from the sale of contraband tobacco, and it's something that we need to look very carefully at while engaging with our Indigenous communities. And so these discussions are ongoing. We hope to have those updates soon. But to your members, where we can help is on your ideas how we can fight contraband tobacco while engaging with the Indigenous communities to make sure that there is a win-win. Because I do believe there is a win-win out there where we can stop contraband tobacco and have a positive impact in our Indigenous communities and make sure that all those other social costs that we're paying at the moment are eradicated. And we've seen other jurisdictions that have found that right balance. And so we look forward to working with your members to make sure that we get there, because I'm confident that we will get there.
That's great news, because we are absolutely ready, willing, and able to work very closely with government. We've already had some meetings, and we will continue that dialogue and continue to offer up tangible, workable solutions. And again, that's why we thought it was so important to engage the services of Ernst & Young, because it's really important to have that third-party data. It's one thing for us to say, advocating for our members, that contraband tobacco is a problem, but when you have a third-party verified source of data, I think that really is helpful for, obviously for us, but also for government in terms of informing their decision-making. So listen, I want to thank you so much again for being such a strong advocate. We were honestly just so delighted when we saw your video. It was an immediate hit amongst our members. Just great to see that level of passion and engagement and understanding, frankly, about our sector. You know, it's always great to have some ambassadors at Queen's Park who truly understand small business and, more importantly, understand the critical role that convenience stores play in our communities. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts for sharing your story. And we really look forward to, in the coming months, working with you to address, some of the issues that we've talked about today.
Absolutely. And it was very easy to do. That's my story. I love talking about my family, where we came from. I'm proud of it. I know that C-stores are more than just small businesses. They're pillars of our community. They're, like I said in the video, our neighborhood watch, our philanthropists. And so to your members, keep up the great work. We're with you. We're going to fight for you. And we're going to make sure that we see those great outcomes that you're asking for seen through to the end. And you do have a friend in me. And don't hesitate to reach out anytime you need something.
Thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.